Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. I'm your host, Rob Cramer, joined as always by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Kurlan. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good, and I have to say a happy birthday to my co-host, Robert.
Thank you, Dan. That's right. My birthday was on the 15th, a couple of days ago. The 36-year anniversary of not only my birth, but the day the Mets clinched the pennant in 1986 when they beat the Astros at the Astrodome in 16 innings. So, I don't know what everybody was more excited about that day, but I'm assuming my parents, was at least me.
I imagine your parents probably had a radio. They're listening to Bob Murphy as you're popping out of your mother. Your parents have Bob Murphy in the living room. Bob Murphy's voice is piped out throughout the delivery room, I imagine, as he's 16 inning call, as he's that very iconic, extremely enthusiastic swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a miss in the World Series.
Struck him out.
That call so many times that it's like
that Murph call is an all-time classic.
Or I imagine that, or maybe someone had or at least had a TV in there, because back then that was when they still actually made sure the entire playoffs was still on network TV. Now, which I kind of it's like not like today. Like my grandmother loves baseball. Like she's mostly a Mets fan, but she wants to watch playoff baseball, and when she's in she's sometimes back and forth between New York and Florida, but when she's in New York, she wants to watch the playoffs, and in the room where she stays, that TV doesn't have cable, so it bums her out that the last couple of years there haven't been many postseason games except for the World Series which is always on network TV, is on a lot of it's on cable. So when the rare time she's able to watch a playoff game on her TV happens to be today, because the game 2 of the NLCS is airing on Fox, and I think Saturday game 3 will, or is that game? I think it's game 4 is airing on Fox. So it's like it's a rare time, and of course she watches like a few times the Mets are on PIX, and well, prior to the old deal, same thing when the Yankees were on PIX before they signed that stupid Amazon deal, which even though I'm a Mets fan, I feel bad for those Yankee fans that have to shell out. They have to shell out money on Amazon to pay for Amazon, so they could watch those games that are on Amazon.
Yeah. And what's that?
And a similar thing with every baseball fan in the country has to do this with Apple TV for select games. So that's, and then I haven't experienced yet. I don't have an Amazon sub, so it's like I'm like trying to figure out how I haven't seen any games get flexed yet, but I know it's inevitable that there's going to be a Giants game being broadcasted on Amazon, and I'm going to be either stuck paying for Amazon for the length of the football season, or going to a bar, going to Donovan's or something to watch a Giants game.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I know the Jets are on Thursday Night Football later this year. It's Jets and the Jaguars. I think it's the week before Christmas. So
ask because I haven't seen how the how the sports broadcasts are on Amazon, but I don't know if you have Amazon yourself and have looked at any Yankee broadcasts. Was there lag at any point during
There,
a
there
Yankee?
was, there was it, especially early on when they first started doing it. I remember actually even seeing Eastside Dave tweet a video about it, and I went and checked it out myself a couple of times, and he was right on. It was very choppy. There was definitely a lot of lag, like you said. Even sometimes when I would put it on, the audio wouldn't be matching up with what you'd be seeing on TV. So the audio would be off, and yeah, so it was yeah, definitely getting some kinks out of it early on.
Yeah, that's the one thing I have to credit to Apple TV. Even though it's a horrible job with those cackling hens on the in the broadcast booth on Apple TV games, they sure did a great job. They at least they finally got the as the season the second time the Mets were broadcast where game was on Apple TV. They seem to finally had gotten the lag part out of it because I
Yeah,
was
that first game they did where it was Scherzer's first start as a Met against the Nationals. You're right. That game was a little laggy and a little off. But I agree with you. As the season went on, Apple TV totally figured it out, and hopefully Amazon does that because I really haven't watched too much. I do have Amazon, but I really haven't watched too much Thursday night football. As like Thursday night football has been trash this year. Every game has been seemingly terrible, so I really haven't had to go out of my way to watch that. But thankfully yet. But what's that, Dan?
like you said, the Jets have a scheduled Thursday night game, so you're gonna hopefully experience and definitely keep us all up to date of what it was like. I meant overall how the pretty much how well the broadcast worked. Like, let us know if there was any lag.
Oh yeah. Well, and luckily too for Jet fans that have to deal with that crap because the Giants will be playing on Thursday, but it'll be on Thanksgiving, so that it's going to be against the Cowboys, so that game will be luckily on Fox for you guys. But we actually are going to have one of those 8 p.m. Thursday night games. I believe it's December 22nd or 23rd, whichever day that is. So the one good thing about it is that it'll be at the end of the year for the most part. So anything that they've got to work out now and little technical difficulties and stuff will hopefully be figured out by the time December rolls around. But speaking of that, man, we got so much to talk about. Not only we got to talk about our two great football teams right now, and that's a word that I did not expect to be using about our football teams this year. They've both been great. The Giants are 5-1, knocking on the door of 6-1, one of their best starts they've had in years. Same thing with the Jets, 4-2 on our side, of MetLife Stadium over there. So the Jets are on a roll, a 3-game winning streak for the first time since 2019, and that was an Adam Gase year where they started off 1-8, and they had a 3-game winning streak late in the season that meant nothing against garbage opponents. So you could take that and throw that out. It's probably their first 3-game winning streak since at least 2015, if you don't count that. But also going on, like you mentioned, we got game 2 of the NLCS tonight, Phillies Padres. You called the Phillies knocking off the Braves. And right now, the Phillies have a 1-0 lead. They're down 8-5 in the ninth inning. So it looks like the Padres are probably going to even that series up. But you nailed that, my friend. How are you liking how the Phillies look so far?
Uh, I feel like this game is going to go at least anywhere, either 5 or 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
I either 5 or 6 games. The I feel like the I feel like the Astros Yankee series is going to go 6 games potentially. I think.
And who do you think? Because right now, as you mentioned, this game 1 of the ALCS is just getting underway. The Yankees just knocking off Cleveland yesterday, not really having any time to catch their breath. But Harrison Bader goes out there and hits a bomb in the second inning off Justin Verlander, and it was a no doubter too, a line drive shot right up by those train tracks up there that they have in Houston. and that was a bomb. It was like way past it. It was like where Albert Pujols' home run went off Brad Lidge in 2004. If anybody watching remembers that.
Definitely not a cheapie, and as in a ballpark that's like a the bandbox, especially if you hit any of those things hit to those think section upper boxes. I've never been to that stadium, but I know enough people that have been to that stadium that's really seen it up close that can tell like it's like a bandbox.
Yeah, it does kind of
So
play
so that,
like that sometimes. You're right about that.
but yeah, that game I have a feeling this game is gonna go. I feel like it's gonna go to the last out. Like that 1-0 score, I feel like can might not be the way the game ends.
Oh, I agree with you. And the Astros have already, made a bid to put some runs up on the board. I mean, the first inning, as we discussed before we came on air, we were both kind of marveling at the catch that Aaron Judge made. What an amazing grab he made in the first inning, definitely saving 2 runs. If that ball that Bregman hit gets in the gap or gets past Judge, you know, that's a 2 run, at least double, and with Bregman's speed, probably even a triple. And I know you have Harrison Bader out there in center field who, and he's been great with his bat. He's been hitting home runs left and right for them. Um, but and I know you do have his improved defense in there in center field. But if that ball gets past Judge, there's nothing you can do. And Aaron Judge is just doing everything he can to show everybody on the national stage that he deserves that 400, maybe if you want to go crazy and Stevie Cohen gets involved, maybe close to $500 million contract. I mean, he's going all out for this money, man.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's good. I could easily see Aaron Judge getting into a bidding war. The moment another owner other than the Steinbrunners starts offering him a large contract, it's going to be a bidding war between whoever's going to sign him and the Steinbrunners.
You're right.
It's not. This is. I mean, it's a big game changer these days. When in fact you got Steve Cohen, who's I feel this could well not to the craziness, crazy personality, and some of the crazy practices that George Steinbrenner did, like calling this panic team meeting after an elimination, like he did there, or doing some other crazy stuff that Steinbrenner was known to do.
Yeah.
But got that he seems to have that drive to that he'll do whatever he can in his power to make the team a winner. And it could be like what happened when Steinbrenner those early years when Steinbrenner's bought the Yankees, that he looked like the moment from all the stories I've read and stuff, it looked like he was trying to make that team a winner the moment he bought it. That's the vibe I get from Steve Cohen, that he's
Oh
gonna
yeah. You're
try.
you're spot on, man. You are spot because when you even look at those 70s Yankees teams, even before that 77, 78, back-to-back championships they had, which by the way, the Astros just tied the game against against Jameson Tyone in the bottom of the second there. So we'll be giving you up to dates with that, even though I guess nobody's really watching live, but we'll still do it because we're reacting to it. But I mean, just to get back to the Yankees, like you mentioned, before they even won that championship in '77, um, George Steinbrenner bought the Yankees in '73 and really started to transform them. In the early '70s, the Yankees were trash. They were running guys out there that had no business wearing the pinstripes for the most part. I mean, you had some younger guys like you had Thurman Munson and Bobby Mercer and stuff like that, who the Yankees wanted to try and build around. But then it really came to fruition when they signed guys like Catfish Hunter, who came and joined the Yankees. I think his first year was either 75 or 76. And obviously the Yankees won the pennant in 76, but then lost to the Reds in the World Series. The Big Red Machine swept them. But they also brought in Bobby Bonds, Barry Bonds' father, who had a couple of good years there. Then they traded Bonds and they ended up bringing in Reggie Jackson, and he was the stir that he was the straw that stirred the drink. That's what the Mets have to find now, because this is going to be a transformative offseason, and the Mets really have to find you know straw. I can't say it. That straw that stirs the drink.
Yeah, exactly. It needs to be, and it just looks like that's gonna it, it just looks like that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, and there's going to be a lot of choices because, as you know, me and you know, we've done this on the show in the past. I'm sure everybody watching, for the most part, knows the amount of free agents that are on the Mets right now, and we're probably going to see a very different team next season. Um, it's unfortunate. I would love to see them run it back with all these same guys, but it's just not going to happen.
At the same time, there's certain guys that I feel that is going to be likely to return that I feel would not even be returning if Fred Coupon owned the team. Like I Owen, we have a good chance of re-signing DeGrom.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it's going to really come down to what Jake wants. I hope the Mets, because I'm telling you right now, it kills me to see this NLCS going on right now with the Phillies in there, and you have Zach Wheeler and Noah Syndergaard pitching for the freaking Phillies. Now Syndergaard hurts a little bit less because Syndergaard, the Mets wanted to bring him back, but he just wanted to go to LA and took the 20 million from the Angels and ran. But but with Zach Wheeler should never have been allowed to leave, and that is all on, as you said, the coupons.
Yeah, exactly. I feel if Steve Cohen had bought the Mets maybe a couple of years earlier, I feel Zach Wheeler would have still been a Met because he would. I mean, because the coupons really lowballed Zach Wheeler. Like they didn't even offer him anything.
Yep.
They
And
didn't even. I know Steve Cohen would have made an effort to retain Zach Wheeler. I feel.
yeah. Oh, no doubt about it. Steve Cohen definitely would have. And Steve Cohen also wouldn't have been stupid enough to have Brody Van Wagenen as his GM, who, he did some good things and he did some bad things too. I don't want to overly kill him, but one of the dumbest statements that he ever made in his life was when they were talking about letting Zach Wheeler walk. He said, and I quote, that Zach Wheeler, all he's ever done is have a good season and a half. Now, it's 4 years later, and he's still one of the top pitchers in baseball, pitching in the NLCS. One hit, one hit shutout in game one through 7 innings. Uh, I think you were wrong about that, Brody.
Exactly, and I think the only good thing that Brody will forever be remembered for is Edwin Diaz.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely. I mean, look, Jared Kalanick hasn't exactly been ripping it up, so it does kind of soften the blow a little bit, and everybody's going to forget about Robbie Cano sooner or later. But Edwin Diaz, especially if he comes back, that will be one of the lasting impacts that that Brody had. And I was always hopeful too for another guy that Brody brought in JD Davis. I used to, especially in 2019, I was such a big fan of JD Davis, and it's such a shame that he never really had another good season like that, and that they traded him again and gave up on him for Darren Ruff.
That just bums me out that he just gave that we just gave that we will what I feel was a Wilpon move
Yeah.
during that trade. Felt like that. But I feel that two people that maybe and maybe three people that need to be brought back next year, Edwin Diaz, because I feel that could fill that void. Because I
Yeah.
mean, Edwin Diaz, I feel like he's reaching Mariano Rivera territory. Like it's not often that I feel this even close to comfortable with anyone that's a closer in that uniform. And it looks like Edwin Diaz has just found a way to handle wearing that uniform and being a closer in that uniform.
Yeah,
And
something clicked ever since 2020. And I know he had his ups and downs last year, and he had his ups and downs even in 2020, which is why I think by the end of the season he really even lost his closer's role for that abbreviated 60 game season. But boy, he grabbed the reins last year and was a decent closer, but in 2022 he took it to a different level. And I do kind of agree with you that, I mean, I hate when people compare closers to Mariano Rivera, because throw the guys out there that you want to compare him to. Who are you going to pick if the game's on the line? And I was a big fan of him back in the day, Trevor Hoffman. But if you had to choose between Trevor Hoffman and Mariano Rivera, who are you picking?
Yeah, probably Rivera, because that guy.
Yep. And if you had to pick, any of these big time closers, Billy Wagner or Mariano Rivera, who are you picking?
Probably Rivera, because I feel that guy has somehow managed to handle a closer like not. I don't think anyone I've seen be able to handle being a closer before.
Yeah.
Because the guy managed to just pull off being a closer in such big spots is what I feel prevailed him to be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, no doubt about it. And the guy had an ERA in the postseason under 1. So, I mean, I definitely want to tip my cap to Mariano, because he's the best to ever do it. And so that's why I get a little, uncomfortable, and I roll my eyes a little bit when some people compare closers to Mariano. But you know what though? You're not that far off with the way that his dominance was this season. It was Mariano like, and it was the thing that makes me think that more is that one thing Mariano had going for him, aside from the fact of how great a pitcher he was and how clutch he was, is that a lot of the times guys would go up to the plate and already feel like they struck out, or already feel like they were out. They had no chance against this guy. So in their head, they were already beating themselves. And I felt like at times this year, players felt like they went up against Diaz, and they just felt like they had no chance. They were just swinging the bat up there, throwing it, hoping that maybe they'd accidentally make contact. But this guy was just so freaking good this year. It really was on like a Mariano type level, especially with the strikeouts.
Yeah, plus that I feel he's one of the few closers that I feel that's been able to pitch with these new extra inning rules. Like I
Yeah.
feel that extra inning rule always scared me with our history of closers, but this guy has seemed to be, I think, the best I've seen to be able to handle that, and being able to go to a mount, being able to go to the mound in a situation where there's already a runner,
And
especially.
no doubt about it, man. That the ability to strike out guys is huge under those extra inning rules. Which, let's just keep our fingers crossed that this is the last year we ever saw that crap. Because I gotta say, I've enjoyed this postseason so far, seeing a couple of these long extra inning games. I hate when they do that crap where the guy's on second base and I liked the game that went scoreless into the 15th. I like that game that went 1-1 into the 18th. I just like watching that stuff. I like watching baseball. And I feel like non-baseball fans were making that decision to keep these rules intact. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I know it's a far stretch for them to want to get rid of that rule because I know how Manfred is, but I would be happy if they did get rid of that rule, which I know is very slim chance. But
I
if
think
they
had only agreed to extend that for one more year. So technically on the books, that extra inning rule thing is still only in effect for next year. The players union, or whatever the way they have to go through it, and Major League Baseball are still going to have to approve it again next year if they do it. But I'm really, really hoping that's not the case. Dan, you there?
exactly, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, sorry, it's breaking
I'm
up a
just
little bit.
I'm hoping they get rid of that rule, and I will be happy if they do. I have to admit, next year I think even during spring training, it's going to get a little interesting, being the fact that next year is a World Baseball Classic year. The first time we've had the World Baseball Classic since 2017. For those who don't know, it was supposed to happen in 2021, but they delayed it a couple of years due to like the COVID circumstances, how it was affecting the team, players that were from overseas having to travel. Some teams like the international travel, so they were waiting for a little bit to make sure that was like all that circumstance was a little cleared up. And of course, also full capacity. I'm gonna be looking forward to watching that, and I'm probably gonna be start behind merch even before the regular season starts because it's a baseball classic year. So I'm probably gonna buy a shirt. I'll probably buy one of those jerseys for the USA team, specifically the Pete Alonso one. I'm probably gonna buy.
Very true. It's going to be very cool to see Pete playing for Team USA this year. Team USA has a pretty stacked lineup so far from what I've seen. They've got a lot of big name commitments. So and it'll be very interesting to see if they could pull off the repeat and do what I believe only Japan has done. I think
The
Japan won it the first two, right?
first two, and I have to. Yep, exactly. I have to say also, we could be seeing Pete Alonso play with his potential future Mets teammate for the first time because Aaron Judge taking part in that. So that could be a little preview of the of the regular season. We could be the first time we see Judge and Alonso as teammates before potentially they could be Met teammates if we're lucky.
Very true, man. And all right, before we move on from the baseball here real quick, I just want to get your predictions. We were talking about the LCS is going on right now. Let's start off with the National League. You said you think that this is gonna go about 6 games, Phillies and Padres, and since we discussed it, the final out was recorded in that game, so the Padres officially won Game Two, 8-5, evening that series at one apiece. Dan, who do you think is coming out from the National League side?
Then I predict that San Diego's probably going to come out of this one on the NL side, and
So you're saying San Diego in 6?
yeah, and I feel it could even be this one could be. I feel it also could be Houston in 6 on the AL side because I just feel like I know the Yankees seem like they're playing well. I also feel like the Houston is playing like they seem to be playing very extra hungry because I feel they've been going through that whole cheating stigma ever since that scandal happened. They seem to be eager to finally show that they can win it without cheating.
You're right. And they are seeking redemption. You're definitely right about that because let's think about what they've done since then. They lost in the LCS in 18 to the Red Sox. They lost in the World Series in 19 to the um to what's it called? To the they lost
Washington
in the
Nationals.
to the Nationals. That's true. Then they got knocked off by the Rays in 2020, and things just have not been going their way. And I really think that I agree with you. Actually, I feel like Houston is going to win the World Series. I felt like that since the Mets got knocked out, really. Um,
Yeah,
and I feel like I totally agree with you. I think the Padres are going to beat the Phillies, and I think the Astros are going to beat the Yankees, and that we're going to see a Padres Astros World Series.
I also feel like especially is that because Dusty Baker seems to be very eager to win a World Series. He's come close many times in his managerial career. He came close in 2000. I think he was like 9 outs from winning a World Series with the San Francisco back in 2002.
You're right; they were so close, and then he left Russ Ortiz in.
I feel like he's had that regret since game 6 of that 22 World Series. Plus, I mean, the 2003, which was also another one that I feel he's kind of that NLCS. I'm sure he feels that that potentially the Cubs could have won that series. I mean, he he probably still feels bad that Moises Alou missed that play.
Yeah, the Steve Bartman play. So that I agree with you. It would be very, very nice to see Dusty get a get a ring and maybe even call it a career. Because he's been in baseball a long time. If the Astros do win the World Series this year, it would not surprise me if Dusty Baker decides to go off into the sunset.
Yep, that would not surprise me. Also, I have to say about that Dusty Baker play, since that Bartman play, that section of Wrigley Field, there's fences over that section.
Oh
So,
yeah,
yeah, you maybe I got to look up the stat again. I got to look up what seat that is and maybe look at a picture of the view from the seat that Bartman sit at today, like a 2022 picture from that seat to get my best gauge if that area is in front of a fence. But if that's then that then Bartman in 2022, Bartman couldn't have made that.
could have interfered. Wow.
that he couldn't. He
Wow.
wouldn't have here in 2022, being the fact that it was fence.
Yeah. We'll get all right. In 3, 2, 1. And all right, now Dan, one more thing before we move on from the baseball, because I do want to talk, a little bit about the Knicks. I do want to talk a little bit about our football teams, and then mention a little Rangers and Islanders action at the end here. But you know, let's just say me and you both expect the Yankees to lose this series. Which I'm not saying they can't win because the Yankees are a very good team, but I'm saying we both expect Houston to move on. Now let's just say that the Yankees do lose, and that the Steinbrenners and Yankee fans in general get a little sick of this act for losing again, and Aaron Boone gets fired. Who do you think? Because I have a name in mind right now. Who do you think would be a top candidate for the Yankees to be their new manager?
That one, I'm not sure who's some of the big names that are not currently managed with the team.
Well, let me ask you a question. The guy that I have in mind right now, it just makes all the sense in the world to me. Don Mattingly.
Yeah. I feel Don Mattingly definitely makes sense. I feel like he was trying to manage when he was in Miami, and I just feel if he was in a situation where he was not really he was at a team that had ownership that wasn't really making a push to be a winning team. I feel like they were just tanking, and sometimes that does wear down on a manager. And I
No
feel
doubt
like it
about
was
it.
the complete opposite of what he had when he was managing the Dodgers. He still had a team that was trying to do go that extra. I don't know how much they were spending, but they seemed like they were trying to take being a contender seriously when he was with LA,
Yep.
and he wants to manage a contender, Don Mattingly. So I feel that's like a good opportunity, and I think Don Mattingly would love to be able to wear. I think his number was if my memory serves correct, it was 23 with the Yankees, right?
You nailed it.
Don Mattingly, why he doesn't wear of all the times he's managed and when he mismanaged the Dodgers and he's managed the Marlins, why he won't wear 23? He says that number will only. He said that he would only wear that number if he's in pinstripes, and
That means a lot to him.
that number is retired. So we definitely know he would love to be able to put on that number, that pinstripe jersey with that number 23 on it once again. He would love to have that opportunity to manage the Yankees. And if they come calling for him to manage, if the Steinbrenners were to give him a call to offer him that managerial position, he is very likely to take that managerial position.
No doubt about it, because as we all know, he just ended his relationship, much like Derek Jeter did, with the Miami Marlins. So he's been their manager for years. This is a guy who has been a really good manager in the past. I mean, let's look. He started off as a bench coach with the with the Torrey under the Yankees. Then they both went over to the Dodgers. And when Torrey retired as the manager for the Dodgers, Mattingly assumed that role, took over, and a bunch of these division titles that the Dodgers have won that people credit Dave Roberts with because, he's been there for a pretty decent amount of time at this point. Those first few division titles were Don Mattingly's.
I feel also why they credit Dave Roberts is because he was the one who managed when they did win that 2020 World Series. So probably shadowed it.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. And Roberts is a really good manager and deserves a lot of credit too. But what I'm saying is people forget that this Dodgers NL West dynasty that is now, I believe, at 9 consecutive division titles started under the guidance of Don Mattingly. And hey, even when the Mets faced the Dodgers in the playoffs in 2015, Donnie Baseball was their manager. So, and don't forget too, people might want to overlook his time with the Marlins. And he had that team overperforming at times, especially in the pandemic season. I mean, if you look at that 2020 pandemic season, the Marlins playing as well as they did were probably a major reason why the Mets missed the playoffs, because the Marlins had a great year, made the playoffs. They won a round, they knocked the Cubs off, then they ended up, I believe, getting beat by the Braves. But boy, it was a really good run for them. And Donnie Baseball got them to their first playoff series since 2003.
Yeah, he seemed to really somehow manage to get a team that probably was designated, especially if you remember in 2020, they were dealing with a lot of COVID cases during that season.
You're right.
They literally just had to barely field a team. Like literally, I think they found anyone who was who had I who had played base. I feel like was playing baseball on a professional level. They could find to try to field a team, and somehow they made the play with practically nothing.
That is such a
And
good point, man. Such a good point.
rally that team together and get the most he could out of that hand that he was dealt.
No doubt about it. And it was a very tough hand he was dealt, and he did great with it. And the Marlins had a very impressive season. All right, so I just wanted to gauge your reaction on that because what's that?
Plus that he's had experience with managing. He's had, he's had Christian Yelich at one point on the team. He's probably maybe has some experience managing with a Giancarlo Stanton on the team. So it would be sort of a reunion with one of his old players.
That's true. That's true. And yeah, this is a guy who knows Stanton very well. So that's a good point. And hey, so when we're when you look at the possibility, I think we both agree that that Donnie would be a very good choice for the Yankees. But I think we've talked enough about baseball right now. Let's move on to our football teams. As we'll start off with your Giants, man. And I got to tell you, I did not think that the Giants were going to beat the Ravens. I thought that the Ravens. I was very impressed with how long the Giants hung in that game, and how well they played. They're such a well coached team. Dayball has done such a great job with this with this Giants squad, and they might not be the most talented team, but they might be one of the best coached teams. And just to get that ball back and to drive right down the field, put the touchdown in, and you go down from being down 2017 to up 24-20, and that was the final as the Giants won. Man, you must have been going crazy watching that game.
Yeah, I was going crazy watching that game. I have to say, I haven't seen a team this well coached since Tom Coughlin managed the team. Also, I feel that some of the best ever since the 1990 season when they won Super Bowl 25. I feel the Giants have seemed to have some of their best seasons when the expectations were very low, and that's what happened in 2007. It was I think the Giants just flew under the radar in '07, and they managed to ride that wave to a Super Bowl.
You're right.
2011,
I remember even in 2007, sorry to interrupt you, but in 2007, I remember hearing Giant fans wanted Coughlin fired before that season.
and somehow they pulled it off and winning it. I remember that. I
Yeah.
also remember 11. Maybe they kind of had very low expectations. They were kind of, in the off season. They were kind of wanting Coughlin fired, and I don't know why, but somehow I felt they were gonna have some magical season. Like I just remember during this is crazy that during the summer of 2011, I was at a NASCAR race with I was there with a friend of mine. Right, we went to this NASCAR race in Indianapolis. Right, the hotel staying at was, by the way, it was not far. I was looking at the window of that hotel and realized that Lucas Oil Stadium, I could see it from the window of that hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And is it a possibility that this could be where the Giants win their next championship in this very building that I'm looking at? Fast fast forward a couple months later, not only did they end up in that Super Bowl, of course, we all know they ended up. I happened to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Not only did they win a Super Bowl there, coincidence at that time, if you flash back to that summer, I was looking at a building that I was going to be in and see like a giant bowl. And that was that was just a magical season, and they flew under the radar that year, and they won it. This year, I had a feeling that we were going to be a very formidable team, even though maybe the expectations were kind of low. Just something about the the way Dave was going to do this. It's
Then
just some
you're
players that were
breaking up a
just
lot.
eager to prove that who came off a year that he was injured. Kind of has like had kind of like maybe up and down his career so far. Looks like he was eager to have an prove, and then who I feel has had some been injured a number of times is finally eager to show what he can do. He's having a monster year so far.
Dan, you were breaking up.
I
Are you
mean,
talking about Saquon Barkley?
yeah, Saquon Barkley is having a monster year so far. And then we drafted very well. I mean, this was probably the most enthusiastic draft class I've seen in ages with the Giants. So I thought this team. At first, I thought, this team looks like maybe it might be a building block. Maybe they kind of show what they can do maybe in the future seasons. I think they're starting to show that this year.
They definitely are, man. And
And
I think not only like you said that Saquon's having a good season, I think especially after the way that he really was such a big factor in that win over you know Baltimore this past week. I think right now, 6 weeks into the season, I know it's early, but I think you can squarely put Saquon Barkley in the NFL MVP uh, discussion right now because he has been that much of a difference maker for the Giants. Where I think if you took him off the Giants team right now, maybe they'd still be competitive, maybe 3-3, something like that. But they definitely would not be in the position they are right now without the play of Saquon Barkley.
yeah, definitely. I feel this is the most exciting Giants team I've seen in years since the Eli Manning years. Like that's how much it it's getting excited. I'm actually it's like getting close to Halloween and this team still being relevant.
Yeah.
I could it could be pretty interesting. It's going to be pretty interesting already on the. Remember what I said? I'm hoping to see the Giants be they're relevant
Yep.
when when it comes to on Thanksgiving, and I'm watching in front of my TV, potentially setting up a table in my living room so I could eat my Thanksgiving dinner while watching the Giants game. I feel there's a good enough reason for me to want to do that on on a on Thanksgiving, and I think I could be find myself watching football being must watch for me in January, which hasn't happened in a while.
True, man. No doubt about it. And you know, a lot of people wanted to dunk on the NFC East coming into this year, saying, "Oh, they got Washington and the Giants. You know, are not a good team. You know, the Eagles are so, and the Cowboys. You know, aside from Dak, you know, who the Cowboys got, aside, you know, and Parsons. But look at the NFC East right now. The Philadelphia Eagles are 6-0, and they're a pretty good team. You know, the Dallas Cowboys are not a team to be taken lightly. They have one of the best defenses in the league and continue to be a competitive team, even with Dak hurt. And then, as we've discussed, you got the Giants. So there are three really good teams that are going to be fighting it out in the NFC East for the rest of the season. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. What are your thoughts on Philadelphia and Dallas, Dan? Are you expecting them to both keep their good play up?
I think maybe more if Dallas might falter a little bit, but I feel it could come down to the Giants and the Eagles, and I feel they could be the biggest contender. Two of the biggest contenders in the NFC could be the Giants and the Eagles, and it's gonna get very heated. It's gonna be a heavyweight fight. I can tell you that.
No doubt about it, man. No doubt about it. A lot of fun. And now the team you guys got coming up next week is Jacksonville. And you know, Jacksonville is they're on the upswing a little bit. They're not a bad team. They're still, you know, living and dying with Trevor Lawrence, and they have a decent defense over there. They've been up and down this year, but I think Jacksonville is a competitive team. What do you expect? Do you think that the Giants are going to go out there and beat Jacksonville this week?
Good chance the Giants are going to win this, especially when the fact that I feel that same. It's probably going to be mostly Giants fans. I mean, there's so many New Yorkers in Florida, so I'm expecting a lot of. I'm expecting it might seem like the sixth borough. I mean, there's going to be a lot of uh, making their way.
That's true, man. That's true. And you know, the Giants being a really good team right now only will motivate more people to come out. So you're definitely right about that. It's going to be a fun game to watch this week.
And as usual, when the New York team's in Florida, there's plenty of fans that are it's gonna become a hot ticket
No doubt about it,
for
man. You can
some
almost
locals that are from.
yeah, you can almost count it as a home game sometimes down there.
Yeah, exactly. Gonna be plenty of Giants blue in Jacksonville. Hopefully, soaking up some warm weather, and maybe some Giants fans that maybe do away games might be making a trip there and busting out packing their short sleeve Giant shirts and some good sunscreen.
No doubt about it, man. And you know, New York fans travel well, as actually we saw last week when the Jets, the other team in town that's having a good football season for the first time in a long time, the Jets went to Green Bay and beat the Packers worse than I've seen the Jets beat the Packers in years. And it might only be the second time they've ever won in Green Bay, as a matter of fact. Um, what a beating the Jets gave Aaron Rodgers, who you just kind of felt bad for, that his offensive line was faltering, his wide receivers weren't doing anything for him. Everything just seemed to be going against the Packers. And as soon as the Jets started to get some momentum, it was just like, a tidal wave. There was nothing that Green Bay could do to stop it. The Jets are doing a lot like the Giants right now, where they're relying on their run, they're relying on their defense to make plays when it's called for, and they're just putting their quarterback in a position where he doesn't have to win the game by himself, but as long as he doesn't make mistakes, this team's going to be okay. And I think Daniel Jones is doing a great job of that with the Giants, where he's not turning the ball over. And right now, Zach Wilson, who's 3-0 as the Jets starting quarterback this season, is doing a great job of that too. He threw a really bad interception in his first start, but ever since then has not turned the ball over once. He's done such a great job. Even when he gets sacked, he's protecting the ball well. I'm really so impressed. I mean, Michael Carter, their backup running back is a beast back there. Breece Hall, one of their top picks from this year, just won Rookie of the Week again. Sauce Gardner won Rookie of the Week last week. Quinnen Williams won Defensive Player of the Week. Now, what have you seen Quinnen Williams play this year, man? He had such an incredible game against the Packers this week. He had a blocked field goal, 2 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, and just looked like an unstoppable force. Green Bay was putting 2 guys on him the whole game, and they couldn't even contain him.
Yeah, I was looking at the highlights of that. That was like, as something else. I mean, I think it could. I'm not saying definite. I don't want to go over my head, but I would not be surprised if Arizona, where I think, if I'm correct, this year's Super Bowl's in Arizona, could be full of a lot of New York accents, like on both sides. I feel people in Arizona are going to get a New York accent stuck in their head. Potentially.
Yeah, you're right. But you might be right about that, man. I mean, both of these teams, and I don't want to get carried away. I don't want to sit here. I love the way the Jets are playing right now. I love the way the Giants are playing right now, because you know what? As New York football fans and everything we've gone through over the last couple of years, we deserve this. We earned this good play, right?
Yeah, especially I feel we've earned it, especially not only with what we've gone through with the teams, but just way things have gone in this area the last couple of years. That I feel we'd want to have something that we could actually like actually something we could actually be glad about happening.
Yeah, something we could sink our teeth into. And there's no reason to not dream big right now. If you're a Giants fan, you're 5-1, you're cruising along, you're playing a weak team this week, not as weak as they used to be, but you have a shot to win a game on the road and improve to 6-1. And guess what? Even if the worst happens and they lose that game, you're still 5-2, and you're still one of the better teams, at least record-wise, in the NFC. With the Jets, it's the same thing. What am I gonna? I cannot sit here and try and pick apart little things that they haven't done. The Jets went into Lambeau and beat the Packers 27-10. That they laid a beat down on them, and that the score wasn't even as close as it appeared to be. The Packers, that one touchdown drive, let's just say they got a little help from the referees to move that ball down the field a lot, and that's the only reason they were even positioned to score that touchdown. The Jets defense dominated Green Bay in a way that I don't know if I've ever seen a Packers offense dominated that thoroughly, and especially by the Jets, I mean. And I'm not going to sit here and poo-poo any of that. I'm not going to sit here and try and talk a Giant fan or a Jets fan out of being very optimistic about their team. Just like you said, we have every reason right now to think that either one of our teams or both could be in the Super Bowl come February. And there's no reason not to think. The Jets are one of the best young teams in the league. They have, so and look, I'm not trying to say that they're the Steelers of the 70s or the early 2000s Patriots. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that they're a very good young team with a lot of talent that has a high ceiling. And the Giants have a lot of talent where it counts, They have big playmakers and big playmaker ability on that team, and they're extremely well coached. So there's no reason for us to sit here and start saying, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, Jet fans! Whoa, 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 Giant fans! Let's not get carried away." No, we've been in the gutter for so long. Guess what? Let's get carried away a little bit, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's get carried away a little bit. I'm not exactly. Let's get carried away a little bit. I'm not saying already. Go call your travel agent and book a trip to Arizona. But it could be maybe a couple of maybe as we get a little bit later into the season. It could be a very possibility that you might be dealing with a lot of high demand for flights from any of our three airports from either New York, from Newark, Kennedy, or LaGuardia to Arizona. There could be a very high demand for flights to Arizona from New York in a couple months.
Let's hope you're right, man. And the Jets, they went out, they beat the Packers, as we mentioned, in Lambeau. Now they're going a mile high against Denver this week. So two interesting matchups. I mean, the Jaguars have been so for this year, so they're going to be going against the Giants. The Broncos have been up and down, with potentially Russell Wilson not even being in to start this game at Mile High. So it'll be another really interesting spot for the Jets, who have already won, in Pittsburgh this year. They've already won in Green Bay this year. So there's no reason for me to sit here and say, well, there's no way the Jets can go into Mile High and win. No, they have every chance in the world to go in there and come out with a victory, and be 5-2, and the Giants have every reason to believe they can come out and be 6-1. So very, very cool stuff we have in the horizon with our football teams right now, and we're just happy that they're still relevant. On the other hand, we're looking at opening night for the Knicks tonight. Now, I just want to move on real quick here, as the Knicks are opening, because we're going to only spend a minute on the Knicks, because it'd be nicer if the Knicks were winning, but unfortunately, the Knicks are having a very Knicks-like night, and they were down by 22. Now they cut that lead to 13 as they open the season in Memphis. It's 80-67 as we speak right now. To be honest, I think one thing that still just sticks out to me with this Knicks team is I don't understand how you move on from or how you didn't move on from Julius Randle. I I don't get that. Julius Randle being on that team is just a big cloud, a big rainy cloud to me. He should have been jettisoned this offseason. I guess maybe that's easier said than done. But to me, the Knicks might make the playoffs this year. I don't know. I don't know how this team is going to gel. But I think a big thing that's going to be standing in the way of that, and of a team cohesion, is Julius Randle being in there.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I don't know. I feel this season just might be more of another development year. I feel realistically. I mean, I just felt like the moment I feel like we failed during the off season, I feel we failed to pull those moves that got us to another level. I mean, let's face it, it's become, I think, the same story with the Knicks failing to bring that big fish in.
Yep.
Donovan Mitchell. I mean, we remember the LeBron James debacle. We
Yep.
remember off season we were expecting the high draft pick, and despite the fact we really tanked really hard, we didn't get even a top 3 draft pick that year. And
You're 100% right.
and then the latest one, Donovan Mitchell, and of course I can't forget got to backtrack. The time we lost that big 3 that we were hoping to get with uh that ended up signing with the Brooklyn Nets instead. So it's like we weren't able to get over that hump. That I feel that this year's just going to be another year. I feel like we're going to be building to maybe hopefully lean on maybe some players we maybe get in the draft. Hopefully hopefully eventually get to that point where we could finally maybe be that one move away.
Yeah, and that's what the Knicks have to count on because right now, I mean, looking at this team right now, what they won 37 games last year. They went 37 and 45. I don't see them being much better this year.
Yeah,
42 and 40, 43 and 39.
yeah.
Definitely not championship material.
I just feel it's unfortunate, and it doesn't make me sad as a Knicks fan to see that this is what's become of the Knicks. I mean, I would love to see the Knicks become contenders again. I mean, I remember in the '90s. I remember as a kid stuff, and even a teenager in the '90s. I remember in the '90s, Knicks tickets were a hot commodity.
Oh yeah.
Once as a kid going to a Knicks game in 1990 during the '94 season, a year we nearly won the NBA Finals. We I was like a bit envious of everyone when I was saying, yeah, my mom somehow through her job, the Knicks donated some tickets to her job. And it's like I got to meet Patrick Ewing. Like my mother I met my mom back then. She worked at a rehab shelter, and the Knicks were donating to the rehab shelter, like some players visited or something like that. So remember I got to meet Patrick Ewing, and I meant these gloves that are kind of too big for me, but I had these for a while. I was wearing these Knicks winter gloves that had like you remember that old '90s Knicks logo?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it looks a little slightly different, but I remember, as a matter of fact, I mean, I remember even seeing a Facebook post saying which '90s NBA logo you want to bring back. I'd said the Knicks logo from the '90s. I mean, let's put it this way about the Knicks in the '90s. One of my favorite Knicks shirts that I have is this shirt from I think I wore it at a game a few years back and people loved it. The NBA Jam Met player team select screen. You know the Knicks, the Ewing and Starks.
Yep.
Remember
Yep.
Jam because that is one of my favorite. That is one of my favorite multiplayer games of all time. Like I feel like that's a game that even if you're not into basketball, you can pick up and enjoy playing a lot. Like that game, and if I could afford to own arcade machines because those things are expensive. Let's put it this way. I feel that's one that I would have to I would almost want to own would be NBA Jam. And I just remember you'll remember those Knicks teams. I mean, I still cringe looking at. I think I was visiting a friend of mine in the Midwest, and we went to a U2 concert in Chicago. It kind of made me cringe a little bit seeing that Jordan statue because it made me hark back to like, oh, this is the guy that was like a roadblock. Like the Knicks would always lose to Jordan, and I feel like I was revisiting that again when I was watching that documentary, that Bulls documentary.
Yep.
That made back some sad memories. The Knicks fan in me made me remember that how we always seem to lose to the Bulls in the playoffs. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah, I
that was
totally agree with you on that, man. And I that Last Dance documentary was a good documentary, but the one thing that made me sick after that was all these Knick fans talking about how great Jordan is. It's like, man, if it wasn't for Michael Jordan in the 90s, the Knicks would most likely at least have one more and possibly even multiple championships if it wasn't for Jordan. Don't sit around and talk about how great this guy is. I'm sick of Jordy.
there probably would have been a Daily News or two on my wall that had the Knicks on the cover. Let's put it this way.
You're right.
And
A couple of Sports Illustrated subscriptions to go with it.
yeah, exactly. Some Sports Illustrated subscriptions to go to. Exactly. I probably would have bought some Knicks collector's editions because that was
Exactly.
that I would love. I think it'd be great for the city and the fans. Like I feel like there's not many. I don't really feel like the Brooklyn Nets really connect. Really, I don't feel like the city endeared themselves to the Nets like they do with the Knicks. Like I just feel the city would just it'd be something else with the Knicks if the Knicks became a contender again. It would be just such a glorious thing that it would be nice to see the Garden rocking again during basketball season. Let's put it this way, and the Knicks being a high demand ticket.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, man. And one thing I do want to say before we move on from basketball, because we are running out of time here, the Knicks, just like you said, they have the heartbeat of the city. if the Nets won the championship this year, which they have a great team and a great chance to win it, if the Nets won it this year, yeah, the city'd be happy. They'd have a parade, but it would be nothing like if the Knicks won a championship. I think if the Knicks won a championship, it would be bigger, especially because it's been so long. It would be bigger than any other team in New York that won. Maybe the Jets too, just because the Jets have been so long, people be losing their mind. But I think the Knicks, especially because they play right in the heart of Manhattan, the Jets are kind of off in Jersey a little bit. Um, if the Knicks won, we would see a party in Manhattan like you've never seen before.
Yeah, exactly. That would definitely be a big one.
The Knicks actually were down by 22, like I mentioned. The end of the third quarter right now, they cut that lead to 6. So, we were taking a couple of shots at Julius Randle, who's having a good game tonight, 22 points. So it's 85-79 now at the end of 3. 6-point game. Maybe we can hope that the Knicks, have a big comeback on this night. So we'll at least have that there. At least they didn't get completely blown out, so we can be happy with that. But just like we were saying, we're going to move on to hockey right now, just to wrap up real quick, as we're running out of time. The Rangers, man, what do you think about them so far?
Oh, I mean, this team is looking good so far. They just very hungry team after short in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. It's going to be a very interesting season, without a doubt. I know maybe Igor had a little hiccups a couple of days ago, but I feel maybe went a little rust for the
Though
off.
let's not even blame Igor so much for that. There was a lot of defensive miscues on the Rangers' part where they kind of left Igor hung out to dry a couple of times. And if Igor had not been in net that night, I think Anaheim would have scored even more than that.
Yeah, so I feel that Igor is becoming like next level. That like I remember I said I think maybe last season I said the Rangers are raising the bar with goalies. I mean, generations of goalies. I mean, 3 generations in a row so far of so far it looks like it's going to be 3 generations in a row of goalies in a row that is raising the bar. I mean, you've had Mike Richter, and then after Richter a little bit retired, we saw the rise of Henrik Lundqvist, who who really managed to fill those big shoes. And like Richter has his name and number in the Rafters of the Garden. Could be we look at a third goalie in a row having that carrying on that legacy.
That's true, man. And he already etched his name into the Vezina list. So
Yeah,
he's definitely he's got the resume already. He looks great, and uh overall so far. Like you said, his numbers aren't quite there yet, but the guy's 3-0 with a 2.6 goals against. So I can't knock him at all. 2.6 goals against is like above average in the NHL these days. A lot of these guys are hanging out around 3. So I definitely think that Igor is only going to continue to get better this year too, as he continues to get more comfortable. But boy, one thing I do want to bring up is how deadly does this power play look? I mean,
and it
it's
looks like
incredible.
I feel opposing defenses are going to fear. Like it's that level of good power play this year. So
Yeah.
this is going to be an epic season. And I've noticed a bit. I kind of noticed. Sam Rosen seems to be sneaking in a little nod to his former broadcast partner, John Davison, a little bit because I've seen Sam Rosen sneak in a couple of old babies a little bit.
It's funny you say that. I actually noticed the same thing. There were a couple of old babies, and I think Sam is just enjoying the hell out of this right now. having a great time. And one player I really do want to tip my cap to, um, on the Rangers as we start off so far is Vinny Trocheck. I mean, Vinny Trocheck has played what they played 4 games or whatever it is. Yeah, I think it's 4 games. He's got 5 points already, a couple of goals, and I think his ability to win faceoffs has done such a great thing for the Rangers. It really helps them with their puck possession. Anytime they need a big faceoff win, you could throw Vinny Trocheck in there. And I don't want to take any shots at Ryan Strome because Ryan Strome was a great Ranger. Who would have thought they traded that guy for Spooner, one of the guys they got from Boston in the Rick Nash trade, who just didn't work out. He was a decent player, Ryan Spooner, but they traded him to Edmonton pretty much straight up for Ryan Strome. And Ryan Strome stuck around here for like 4 years and was great. Ryan Strome was such a great addition to this team. One of the best moves that Jeff Gordon made in his time as the Rangers GM, and also I'm very happy for him that he got paid and went out to Anaheim. But one of the drawbacks to Strome, even though he was great offensively, winning those faceoffs was never one of his big deals. He was always around 46% winning his faceoffs, and Vinny Trocheck is consistently over that 50% mark. And that makes a big, big difference, right?
Yeah, I feel that's a big difference. And I'm really excited so far for this season.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how this plays out because I have a feeling it's going to be another year where I'm going to have that big, thick playoff beard.
Got that right. We could only hope so.
Very known that almost most of the time, aside from maybe I forgot to shave for 2 days at the most, I'm mostly clean shaven aside from when the Rangers are in the playoffs. If the Rangers are in the playoffs, I will not touch that razor for as long as that playoff run goes. And the day before the playoffs start, not only will I of course I shave, I get a haircut. So I go into that. As a matter of fact, Mr. Malunigan might go to the groomer also before the playoffs, because he's not going to go to the groomer during the playoffs for as long as the Rangers playoffs run. He's not gonna make his little trip to the groomer.
Exactly. So he gets his playoff beard going too. And
exactly. And and as also another thing you probably notice a little bit on social media, before every round, after each round, I post a picture of what I look like. I post a new playoff beard photo. Like you see you see me, I'm clean shaven, I'm wearing my Broadway hat. Usually I'm holding Mr. Malunigan. Next round, you see each round you see me and the beard's gotten a little thicker, but before each round, and I'm Malunigan. I wouldn't surprise me this year you see a photo that I might take the day of the Stanley Cup Finals with the thick playoff beard and me, of course, holding Mr. Malunigan, of course. And, of course, even like me, of course, I've even bought a little Broadway hat for Mr. Malunigan as well.
Well, let's just hope, too, that when you're taking that picture, you're looking a lot like Gandalf from Lord of the Rings with the long beard, because that means the Rangers have been, alive for that whole time and playing deep into June. And that's exactly what that we want, right?
Exactly. I can tell you if it's gone that long, I either look like a lumberjack or someone that's about to sell you some really expensive locally brewed beer in Williamsburg. Let's put
it. Fair enough, man. And you know what? We're running out of time here, but before we get out of here, though, I do want to also give a tip of the cap to our crosstown rivals, the New York Islanders, who are starting off pretty well too. They knocked around. They've won. I believe they've only played 3 games so far, but they've won 2 out of the 3. They lost opening night. Then they won the last 2. They played Anaheim before we beat them, and they beat them 7-1. We beat them 6-4. Then also last night the Islanders beat the David Quinn coached San Jose Sharks, who fell to 0-5. I feel bad for Quinny. And now those guys, though, are coming in on Thursday to play the Rangers. So that'll be fun to see him back at the Garden. And Ranger fans, I hope you give him a, good treatment. Don't boo David Quinn, right?
Yeah, he did. He did kind of make the Rangers a little relevant. I mean, during that 2020 season, like,
well, and not only that though, when he came here, David Quinn's goal. I mean, it's always to win a Stanley Cup, but let's be honest. Look at the roster that he was presented with, and the amount of 18, 19, and 20-year-old kids that littered that roster. Sure, there was raw talent there, but you needed a guy like David Quinn to help, you know, get the crap away and get to the diamond in the rough. And I think David Quinn did an admirable job doing that, right?
the best way to, if I'm going to use this analogy for another sport, I feel he was like Buck Showalter when Buck Showalter was managing the Yankees. Like,
Yeah.
he around when they won it, but he kind of jump started that Yankee dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that's kind of what they have done. And like when the Reigns went over to Gerard Gallant, it looks like we could be seeing that Rangers dynasty.
Very true. And just to finish up on the Islanders, though, I do want to give a tip of the cap to Oliver Wahlstrom, who the Rangers famously didn't draft one year. Instead, they ended up picking Vitaly Kravtsov, and that has worked out one way or another, I guess. But Oliver Wahlstrom, he's really got that shot working for them right now. Had another big goal last night for them. So the Islanders have some pieces. They also locked up Barzal to a big time deal, which is also good too, because there was also some breaking NHL news today where Gary Bettman said that um the NHL has made enough money over the last year and a half or whatever the period of time was, that now because there was a whole thing. I don't want to get into it too deep because then you get really lost in the weeds. But pretty much when the fans weren't allowed in the buildings for a lot of that pandemic season and beyond that for a little while, the players were getting paid, pretty much being loaned that money from the owners, and they had to pay it back, and it was put in escrow. And now, according to Gary Bettman, most of that money is paid back by the end of this year, which affects the cap directly because the cap is all due, it's calculated due to NHL revenue. So where we were supposed to be in a flat cap era now, where they said the cap wasn't going to jump above a million, being increased by $1 million until 2026. Well, now they're saying based off revenue projections that the cap is going to increase possibly $4 million after this year, which would be really big to teams like the Rangers and the Islanders, who are going to be under a serious cap crunch, even with that $4 million. So let's be happy about that. Just want to, what's that, Dan?
Happy about that. Definitely got to be happy about that. That we rebounded from that dark time of 2020.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But one thing that does suck about it too is that now, one of the revenue streams the NHL has is putting these games on ESPN Plus and Hulu and all this shit. So, unfortunately, if you're an Islanders fan, they're playing the Devils tomorrow. Unless you have that whatever deal is, either ESPN Plus or I think even if you have Hulu this year, like last year, I had Hulu. I have a regular Hulu plan, and I was able to watch all the NHL games last year on that. I don't think that's the case this year. I think they want you to buy their big Hulu live TV package, and that's the only way that you can get it now. So if you're an Islanders fan or a Devils fan wanting to watch that game tomorrow, unless you have that package, I don't think you can.
Yeah, I think you either have to have that or if you have ESPN Plus, get it also.
Yeah, but yeah, that's part of the package I was talking about. But you're right. It would either have to be Hulu or the Disney Plus package and ESPN Plus, and you have to get all that crap just to be able to watch your team.
I feel it's also got to suck for the bars. I've never kept. I keep forgetting to keep track of that because I've never gone to a bar because I think I ended up getting ESPN Plus for the year to watch it. So, yeah, but I gotta ask if the bars are going to be getting if they picked up an ESPN Plus sub so they could show the game on their TVs. I gotta ask. I might have to ask. I gotta ask because I know someone who does co-own a bar who might be able to give me some insight into that one.
Very cool. Very cool. Hopefully that becomes an option at some point.
That that Donovan's did get they do have Amazon and they are showing the Thursday night games that put NFL games that are airing on Amazon. That I know for sure that they are showing those that if you don't have Amazon and you still want to watch the game that you could and you want to watch bar that Donovan's Pub is one of the places you could go to watch the Thursday night football games. So I got to see if that's the same. If they have the same. If they're doing the same thing with the ESPN Plus hockey games.
Oh, but let's hope so that so at least some people could have that option because that would be very cool if they could work that out. But all right, so we're running out of time here right now. One more score check before we get out of here. It's bottom of the fifth inning. Clark Schmidt is in the game with Kyle Tucker batting. It's 1-1, and the Astros have the bases loaded with one out. So we'll keep our eye on that. Let's hope everything works out. If you're a Yankees fan like Eastside Dave, I hope they win for you. But who knows? Me and Dan both expect the Astros to win. So let's see what happens with that. It would be a lot of fun to cover a World Series, though. It unfortunately wouldn't be our Mets. But Dan, before we get out of here, do you have any plugs for yourself?
Yeah, sure. My Twitter account Bobo103NYC, my Instagram account Bobo718DK, and also my YouTube account Daniel Kurlan. Uh, Also, I got to give a big shout out to Eastside Dave. He's been doing a wonderful job with his show ever since he's been doing the revamping the I meant post Eastside Dave show. He's been revamping the Davy Max Sports program. He's been doing a great job with it, and I feel he did an interesting show. Even though I didn't really have any brooding interest in the game, I did kind of have. I was watching Eastside Dave live stream the game, the NLDS game 5. I was watching that. I thought that was an interesting broadcast, seeing whatever the outcome, just how Dave was going to react. Dave, actually, two Yankee fans were on that broadcast. Of course, you had Dave, and of course, and you had Big A. So I thought it was interesting seeing how they were reacting to what was happening.
Yeah, I
I,
agree. That was a very cool broadcast. I actually watched a little bit of that yesterday when I got home from work too. Unfortunately, the game started at 4, so I didn't even know that he was broadcasting until late. So that was very cool seeing him and Big A there.
speaking of MLB and Game 5 of the NLDS, I feel the Yankees lowballed the fans with the rain delay the night before. I actually I know someone who's actually worked concessions at both city, at the City Field and Yankee Stadium at the same time, same year. He told me that the Yankees are notorious with not managing a weather situation. Like
Yeah.
he said they've had information that pretty much gave them a pretty much almost positive that they weren't going to get the game in, and they'll let fans in despite the fact they know that the weather situation really doesn't look good enough. They're,
Yeah,
they're
well, everybody knew. Look, if you looked at the weather, there was no way they're gonna be able to get that game. And the fact that they had people waiting in Yankee Stadium until 9:30 that night was freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not only ridiculous for the people that work at the stadium and the people attending the game, also the people that are running the business, they're running certain things that need to be on the job when a game is happening, especially even the workers at the MTA that have to put in a lot of overtime and extra work to make sure enough trains are running. not only for the game, but they have to after they've had all that, after they've dealt with all the game day traffic, they got to also put in the work to have the trains ready by rush hour.
Very
Like
true.
they
Very
got to
true.
put
Man.
time
Yeah.
when and so that bit of stress on the MTA people, the overtime they had to put in for that, which I got to give a lot of props to the people at the MTA who put in that overtime to make sure not only the trains are ready, especially during rush hours and when people are on their way to work and students are on their way to school, but also making sure that fans can get to and from the stadium to and from the game on time.
Absolutely, absolutely. All the love to the MTA people and everybody putting in work like that. But unfortunately, we're running out of time here. And before we get out of here, I just want to say you can follow me on Twitter at my last name Cramer NY. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like if you like what we're doing. At Best Seat in the House podcast on YouTube, and also at Best Seat in the House podcast on Instagram. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you everybody for subscribing. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at bsith_podcast. So, for my co-host Daniel Bobo Kurlan, for myself, and for everybody here, thank you very much. Appreciate all the support, and we'll catch you next time on Best Seat in the House podcast.